Good afternoon. My name's Philip Petty, and I am the Dean of Academic Affairs. Will Roger Albee please step forward? Vermont Technical College is pleased and proud to recognize you. Roger Albee holds degrees from both the University of Vermont and the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Roger's career has been remarkably diverse, featuring extensive work in the agricultural industry, public service, and trade policy. Mr. Albee served as the Secretary of Agriculture, Food, and Markets for a number of years, providing much of the vision behind the renaissance in Vermont agriculture and value-added food products. Roger has also been an ambassador for Vermont agricultural products around the world, including Europe and Asia. Currently, he is working on View Boost, a rural tourism application for mobile devices. In recent years, Mr. Albee has served as a valuable advisor to Vermont Tech, providing his expert insight on the changing landscape in agriculture, food systems, and working landscape environment in Vermont and around the world. He also currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer for Grace Cottage Hospital. For these accomplishments and many more, I am pleased to present Roger Albee for the degree Doctor of Science, honoris causa.
Roger, by the powers vested in me by the Board of Trustees of the Vermont State Colleges and the State of Vermont, I am pleased to award you the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereto. Congratulations.
I'm honored and certainly humbled. President Smith, honored guest, and members of the class of 2014. This is your day. As you may know, this institution has a long history. It began in 1866 by an act of the Vermont legislature as the very first public school in the state devoted to the education of teachers. In 1910, the legislature determined that there was a need for technical training in agriculture and chartered the Vermont School of Agriculture. I have a story of that time. I'm a student of ag history in Vermont and read the old yearbooks of history relating to that subject. And in about the 1880s, the then Chancellor of Education, or the Commissioner of Education, indicated that he recommended for those students who wanted to go on and get a technical education in agriculture that they commit a crime. Because the only place that had the best technical education at that time was the Week School in Virginia, or what was then called a reform school. I'm sure none of you there graduated from that institution. But anyhow, Vermont Tech has changed over the years to embrace the changing needs of the labor force in Vermont, in the region, and you today are the trained students that represent that broad base of talent that needs to go forward and be employed in those occupations. Now, we know a lot about you, believe it or not. You're called the millennial generation. And it's said that you're different than any generation that preceded you. My parents' generation were called by Tom Brokaw, the former TV national anchor, the greatest generation because the men and women at that time, in uniform and out of uniform, were engaged were in World War II, and when they came back, they actually didn't ask for anything in return. My parents, like others at that time, experienced many challenges. Among them were the struggles of the Depression and the threat to our world freedom during World War II. As a young person, my mother sometimes remarked to me that growing up, she witnessed veterans of the Civil War and World War I marching in parades in Brattleboro. It made her aware, like others at that time, that many had sacrificed for the world and country we live in today. It is interesting to note from evidence that before World War II, only 15% of high school students went to college. The returning veterans of World War II changed things with the GI Bill. My parents' lives actually revolved around their local community in their state. They knew firsthand what local food was and food self-sufficiency. In fact, when I was Secretary of Agriculture, my mother said to me one day, "Son, what are you doing this weekend?" And I said, "Mother, I have a locavore event." And she said, "What's that?" I said, "That's about local food." She said, "What's new about that?" They grew up eating local food and producing it, and that was mostly what was available. Today, we are, in fact, seeing a renaissance of the past and local food and the connection to the land. In response to this need, VTC has created an Institute for Applied Agriculture and Food Systems under leadership of Dr. Chris Dutton. I'm also very aware that President Smith and Chancellor Donovan had been very engaged in providing leadership in creating a higher educational food systems collaborative in the state of Vermont. My parents loved their friends and family and respected their neighbors, and they believed in community service. They saw changes coming to their towns that would alter their way of life. A few years ago, I asked my mother, "Do you remember when electricity came to your town?" She said, "Oh yes, it was 1938, and they brought one line into our house, and I said to your dad, 'We have that 15-watt light bulb, and it's so bright we'll never need anything more.'" Now, they were afraid to put electricity into the barn because it might start a fire. Mind you, they had oil lamps at that time in the barn. So technology does change, but there is sometimes a resistance to the change that does take place. They also use the old crank phone. I don't know if any of you have ever used those old crank phones. You ring it so many times and you dialed central, and the operator was behind a switchboard, and she put the little plug into the switchboard, and people on the other end answered their phone, and they were always listening in. So if you wanted to spread a rumor or information in town, you set it on the phone because it would show up somewhere else. Well, you probably know that many people at that time also had either a Chevy or a Ford. I hope I'm not disparaging anyone that maybe had a Chrysler or Plymouth, but there were many Chevys and Fords at that period of time. And many people just had one car. And if you wanted to capture a picture, you might have done it with a Kodak Hawkeye Brownie camera, and you had to send the film away to be developed. The mail with a 3-cent stamp was probably the primary way of communicating long distance. When I was in the Army in Germany in the late 60s, it took at least 3 days to get the mail from the U.S. to me. Now you can communicate with a click of the button. Well, things have changed dramatically since then. My generation was the generation of the 60s. We are called the so-called baby boomers, those born after World War II when the troops came home. Our generation is that of the Beach Boys and the Beatles. Any of you like the Beach Boys and the Beatles? Wonderful. Wonderful. Your generation too. Anyhow, we like fast cars, and we're the beginning of the fast food movement. We questioned the status quo, we protested racial injustice, and we challenged the political establishment during the Vietnam War, and it made us a stronger country. President Kennedy and Martin Luther King inspired us. They both had a dream to overcome racial injustice, to undo the heavy burdens and let the oppressed go free, to explore the stars, eradicate disease, tap the ocean depths, and encourage the arts and commerce. You are the millennial generation and are said to be the most technologically advanced generation in the world, or what have some have termed the always connected generation. Some call you technocrats or techno junkies. You are said to be confident. Some of you are said to treat your multitasking handheld gadget like a body part. You don't do that, do you? It's said that some of you even sleep with your iPhone. Unheard of. Research says that the 2/3 of you admit to texting while driving. That's Pew Research. 2/3 of you admit to texting while you're driving. I'm sure nobody here does that. Actually, my wife gets after me because I don't do it, but she thinks I do it. It's against the law, you know. Well, you have your own language, and many in my generation cannot understand it. You believe that the government should do more to solve problems, and according to the same Pew Research, you will be the most educated generation in American history. You're also said to be the most open to change of any generation. And you do live in a global environment, in a tech-driven industry or society, where social media lets people across the world have instant communication. No more airmail, stamps, and fewer telephone calls. It's just a text or email message, and it is all that's needed. I am told that there are over 400 of you graduating today. We expect a lot from you in the future. There are many challenges taking place across Vermont, across the region, and across the nation. There are real opportunities in expanding the frontiers of knowledge and tackling problems related to energy production and efficiency, healthcare, the environment, food production and food security, housing, transportation, and engineering, just to name a few. According to VTC college placement records of the past, some of you will join the workforce. Others of you will continue their education. We know that 60% of all the jobs in the U.S. economy today require higher education training, and that of the 30 fastest growing occupations, almost 2/3 require post-secondary education and training. In Windham County, where I'm from, in southern Vermont, some early estimates is that there will be a need for at least 2,300 jobs within the next 5 years for well-trained individuals like you. In Vermont, we must secure our talent pipeline in making sure that students like you possess the skills needed in this rapidly changing economy. Some of you will leave our state, and yes, it's all right to do so. I hope when you explore the world, you'll bring your learnings back at some stage to our state in your professional life. Every day you're here, however, I hope you'll take a deep breath of that fresh air we have in Vermont, and that you'll look up at the skies at night when the skies are clear and see the stars. And when you ride those back roads that we have all around Vermont, you will enjoy the beauty of our state and the beauty that other people appreciate. It's no wonder that in the recent past, National Geographic magazine indicated that Vermont was the number 5 place in the world to visit and the number 1 place in the U.S. Also, do not forget to thank your parents, your partner or spouse, and those other family members and friends for being part of your life. Many who came before you had dreams. They had dreams for themselves, they had dreams for their children, they had dreams for their community, and dreams for the country. Now those dreams are yours. So go forth as a class of 2014. Use your education, use your talents, use your skills, use your dreams, and make Vermont and the other places you visit a better place. It is said, and I quote, "The awakening of a permanent interest will be the greatest miracle of education." Good luck, best wishes, and God bless to each of you.